There's nothing I love more than taking a deck archetype or genre and flipping it on its head. For literal centuries, white and blue have been the main colors for Blink, so naturally, when I felt the tingle to make a Blink deck for myself, I thought I should do it in mono green instead and make life incredibly hard for me. Luckily, Aether Drift had just dropped and gave me the perfect commander for my pursuits. But before we get started, I gotta let you know that this video is brought to you by the EDH Jank Center, your source for everything Commander and everything Jank, and I'm your host Jordan. Now let's get into it. Before we do anything else though, we've gotta talk about our general, which is Ovia Automech Artisan, which is a 3 and a green legendary creature, human artificer from Aether Drift. Obviously, each creature that's attacking one of your opponents has trample, and it has an activated ability. You can pay a green and tap it. You may put a creature or vehicle card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you put an artifact onto the battlefield this way, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it's a 1/2. What a lovely lady! Having an Elvish Piper in the command zone is so clutch, and normally lends itself to something green excels at: big, dumb magic. Cheat out huge creatures, smash face, rinse, repeat until everyone is dead and you are the victor. However, when I read this card, my mind immediately jumped to a guy I rarely ever see, which is a nice way of saying I see no one running this card, and that guy is Howling Giant. This card right here has a sick ETB ability, but the cost is just too high to justify returning to hand and hard casting again. But Ovia comes in then and saves the day by making it cost only 1 mana to cheat Howling Giant out and snag 2 wolf tokens. So hopefully you see our strat coming together here. We're gonna run high-costed creatures with token ETBs, cheat them out with Ovia, and repeat that process with some help from cards we will be getting to in just a second. Oh, and did I mention this list will be under $50? Well, it is. It's $47.80 at the time of making this video, to be exact, and the deck list you can find in the description. And now let's move on and examine 12 cards that make this deck tick. All right, our first card up today is Deep Forest Hermit, 3 green creature elf druid. This copy is from the Bloomborough Commander decks. It says Vanishing 3. This creature enters with 3 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter from it. When the last is removed, sacrifice it. When Deep Forest Hermit enters, create 4 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Squirrels you control get +1/+1, and it's a 1/1. So as I mentioned before, we want to run high cost cards that have really awesome token generation upon entering the battlefield. This card does just the thing, and what I love about it being featured in this build is that what's normally a downside, the Vanishing 3 ability that puts a time clock on its very existence, is completely negated because we can return it to hand with something like Temur Sabertooth, or blink and reset it with something like Conjurer's Closet. Just letting this hit the battlefield twice in a game nets us 8 1/1s that turn into 2/2s if this thing stays on the field. That is an excellent rate and a fantastic home for a card that usually just stays in squirrel decks, which, you know, hey, there's nothing wrong inherently with the squirrel deck, but you know, sometimes you gotta switch it up, which is what we're gonna do now by moving on to Roaring Primadox, 3 and a green creature beast. This one is from Magic 2015. It says, at the beginning of your upkeep, return a creature you control to its owner's hand, and it's a 4/4. This card right here is why this deck exists, folks. I got the initial idea for mono green Blink while sifting through the bulk I have at home and stumbling upon this janky gem. I could never find a home that really felt right until Ovia got printed, and I immediately rushed over to my bulk and had a little jump for joy. I love finding homes for forgotten or undervalued cards, and with this on the field, we can return that Howling Giant to our hand and then immediately cheat it back out with Ovia. The deck basically just writes itself after that. It just goes to show you, kiddos, that if you have a pet card that you have been fiending to find a home for, the answer, if it isn't already printed, will come eventually. All right, and now it's time for our Patron Selection! And today's card is selected by our patron, Emerald Phoenix. Emerald, thank you very much. And Emerald has chosen Stuffy Doll, which is 5 colorless mana, artifact creature construct. This one is from Magic 2013 because it's the cheapest one, and it says, as Stuffy Doll enters the battlefield, choose a player. Stuffy Doll is indestructible. Whenever Stuffy Doll is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to the chosen player, and you can tap Stuffy Doll to deal 1 damage to itself, and it's a 0/1. Bro, okay, so this isn't part of the actual full-on strategy of the deck. However, I think I will classify this as being part of the removal and protection package in the deck, as opposed to being a player in the main strategy. Whether we're hard casting this or flashing it out with Ovia's ability at instant speed, this thing is a very useful pillow forting piece or combat trick to help keep your opponents on edge or at bay while you set up other dubious blinking shenanigans. Alright, number 4 of the day is Patriarch's Seal, 3 colorless mana artifact from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. It says tap, add 1 mana of any color, and you can pay 1 and tap it to untap target legendary creature you control. With Ovia being so powerful, we definitely want to be doing what she does multiple times a turn if possible. So, cards like this are a must in the list. Not only does it allow us to untap Ovia for just 1 mana, but it can also tap for mana itself. Normally, in a budget build like this, I am very stingy about cards that cost almost $3, but I think the utility of this in particular is too good to ignore, and sacrifices must be made to make it fit. Alright, let's move on to Yeva, Nature's Herald, 2 green legendary creature elf shaman from Magic 2013. It says flash, you may cast this spell anytime you could cast an instant, and it says you may cast green creature cards as though they had flash, and it's a 4/4. Ovia's ability allows us to play more or less at instant speed. This is especially good since we want to spam the board with tokens, and if we cheat in a creature that makes tokens on someone else's turn, those tokens will not be summoning sick once we get around to our turn. That is pretty good. Other players will be very aware of that though, and so we can anticipate some games not being able to have access to Ovia either through removal or board wipes or theft or whatever. But that's why we have contingency plans, baby. Yeva allows us to play our green creatures at flash speed, which is, yes, definitely a downgrade in that we now have to hard cast the stuff, but it's something similar enough that benefits our strat, especially if our Elvish Piper is nowhere to be seen or has been removed already. And now let's take a look at Thragtusk, which is 4 and a green creature beast. This copy is from Commander 2019. It says, when Thragtusk enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life. When Thragtusk leaves the battlefield, create a 3/3 green beast creature token, and it's a 5/3. This card was born for Blink decks, dude. Are you kidding me? Picture this. You pay 1 mana, you cheat out this card with Ovia, you gain 5 life, move to end step. Conjurer's Closet triggers, and we exile it. We make a 3/3. It returns to the battlefield, we gain another 5 life. Turn comes back around to us, Roaring Primadox triggers, we return Thragtusk to our hand, we make another 3/3. We pay 1 mana to cheat it out, and so on and so forth. The proof is in the pudding, so as you clean up the drool from your salivating mouth, I'm going to move on to Oak Street Innkeeper, 2 and a green creature elf. This is from Return to Ravnica, and it says, as long as it's not your turn, tapped creatures you control have hexproof. And it's a 1/2. So this is another card that has steadily hung out in my bulk pile at home for quite some time until Ovia showed up and saved the day. This is quite a commander-centric list, and thusly we need a ton of unique and fun ways to protect our old gal. This card thrives in this list because we actually want our commander to be tapped, so anytime that it is not our turn, we can protect it. So if someone on their turn attempts to swords our commander, we can tap her in response, cheat something out, then the spell will fizzle since Oak Street Innkeeper's ability will suddenly be online. Such a fun and normally quite narrow card, but in this build, I believe it to be right at home. I also think this has great synergy with Sereth, which is also in this list, because Sereth provides blanket protection for untapped creatures. With both creatures out, the only scenario where Ovia could be targeted is if she gets tapped on your turn, but you can easily play around that. So this is a really fun tech, and I'm gonna move on now, so. All right, let's take a look at Slippery Bogbonder next, which is 3 and a green creature, human druid. This one's from Commander 2020. It has flash, hexproof, and when it enters the battlefield, put a hexproof counter on target creature. Then move any number of counters from among creatures you control onto that creature, and it's a 3/3. If we want a more direct and permanent sense of protection, I think Bogbonder is perfect for that. We have a cheatable body, and what's great here is that this provides a counter on ETB, meaning it's blinkable, baby. We can return this to hand and re-cheat out or even hard cast it and put another hexproof counter on a different game piece of ours. Super versatile and fun, and it also has flash, which allows us to play reactively, which is something we tend to want to do in this build. So it's great. Spectacular artwork as well. I mean, who is this guy? And while you try and figure that out and comment if you know anything about this guy, I'm going to move on to both of our number 9 cards. It's Predatory Impetus and Bloodthirsty Blade. Predatory Impetus says 4 and a green, enchantment aura, it's from Commander 2020. It says enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3, must be blocked if able, and is goaded, which means it attacks each combat if able, and attacks a player other than you if able. And Bloodthirsty Blade is 2 colorless mana artifact equipment. This one is from the MKM Precons. It says equipped creature gets +2/+0 and is goaded. It attacks each combat if able, and attacks player other than you if able. Yep. And then you can pay 1 colorless, attach it to target creature and opponent controls, activate only as a sorcery. What's crazy to me is I've gotten this far into the video and have not once mentioned Ovia's first ability. Well, that ability, for what it's worth, is really cool too. And while yes, we aren't specifically building around it, I wanted to include a few cards that benefit us and also synergize with that. So goading it is. I have been really loving forced combat as removal as a philosophy, and Ovia enabling trample for creatures that attack our opponents make cards like Bloodthirsty Blade even more formidable. And also, outside of these cards, that first static ability on our general means that hopefully more creatures will be thrown at our opponents, which, yeah, I would not complain. And it also means the same for us. God, I love this deck, man. All right, moving on. 2, Panharmonicon, which is 4 colorless mana artifact. This is from the Fallout set. It says, if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. I mean, this is a pretty simple tech here, but this is an absolute all-star in the deck, folks, especially as we continue to loop Howling Giant and things like it. I mean, 4 2/2s instead of 2 is better no matter which way you slice it, and considerably speeds up our game plan. And now we're going to take a look at number 11. It's Blood Clock. 4 colorless mana artifact. This is from the list. It says, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player returns a permanent they control to its owner's hand unless they pay 2 life. So this is, I believe, the last card on our list that is something I have always wanted to put into a deck but never have. This card will asymmetrically benefit us since we actually want to return a creature to our hand on every one of our turns, whereas our opponents probably won't want that. Either way, we are making them have 1 less creature on their board, or we are whittling down their life total, which is always a plus. This thing slaps, dude. Enough said. Let's move on to our last card of the day, which is First Responder. 3 in a green creature, Ogre Citizen. This is from the new Capenna Commander decks. It says Vigilance, or Vigilance, if you want to say it like that. At the beginning of your end step, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. Then, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to that creature's power on First Responder, and it's a 3/3. Yeah, wow, so surprised that New Capenna has another banger. Anyways, not only does this support our blink strategy, it does something equally as important: create a secondary threat. I'd venture to say that when faced against this build, most folks will want to shut down the engine. This means getting rid of Ovia and the enablers, so things like Panharmonicon, Conjurer's Closet, and the like. If First Responder does what it wants for a few turns, it can get pretty jacked pretty fast. Meaning that yes, while our opponents have spent resources to take care of our primary engine, now we still have a huge beater on board that can keep us viable in the late game. I am always on the lookout for cards like this and was just so happy to find it in my search. And before we officially wrap up, I just want to mention a few upgrades that you can make to this if you're feeling a bit more spendy. One being, get stuff like Commander's Plate and Mithril Coat. It's pretty self-explanatory here, but Ovia is like so important to the success of this build, so investing in the best protection ensures stability over multiple games and getting your plan online. If you can afford it or already own these cards, I say do it. Next, I would suggest something like Akroma's Memorial. It's a 7-cost legendary artifact, and it says creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and from red. Being in a token deck, this will essentially act as one of your finishers, ensuring a basically untouchable board of attackers. And thirdly, I want to talk about Thunderhawk Gunship. I mean, this thing does exactly what we want, make tokens, but it also enables evasion for all of our tokens, which again can be quite the lovely finisher when we are reaching the end of things and need to close things out. All right, and just like that, we have made it to the end of this week's video. What cards would you slot into an Ovia Blink deck? Did I miss anything? What kind of deck should I build next? I'm always down there in the comments, so come on down and have a chat with me. And if you'd like to join the EDH Jank Center Discord community, watch these videos a day early, submit cards for the patron selection, and play games with me and other patrons every month, consider signing up for the Patreon in the description below. We've got a beautiful Discord community and affordable entry points, so come on in and get janked. And hey, if you don't have the funds for monetary support, that's totally chill. You can just like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for more Commander stuff and more jank. All right, guys, that's it for me. I'll see you on the next video.